we're going to be changing the pressure gauge on a Profitec 700. This is one for the brew pressure, which checks the pump pressure. Okay, we already have the housing off. First thing we have to do is we have to move this control area here. Relatively easy to do. So what we first do is we put on 4 numbers here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. They correspond with numbers on some wires that we have to pull off here. And you see I've already numbered of 1, I got 2, 3, and 4. We also have to pull off this wire here. So we'll start by doing this. I like to do this, I put one hand here, my finger here, use this screwdriver here and just kind of pry up on it a little bit. Comes out nice and easy. And we pull this one off. Remember, then you'll probably number them as you take them off. Get in there. 2, number 3, and number 4. Next thing we're going to do is lay the machine on its side. I've taken got some drip tray here like this, and I got a box there. Want to keep it away from the, you don't want to lay the machine on the capacitor here, so you place this right around there, and then we'll just lay it down there, raise up a touch, fit it right into there, okay? We want to take out these 4 Allen screws. These are all 3 millimeters. One, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to take off this bottom plate here in case you need more access when we're putting it all back together, which I'll show you when we get there. Obviously make sure the machine is unplugged and also cold. You don't want to do this when it's hot. It's kind of fun too when you get to take this off, you get to see inside what you got up inside here. There's the heating element on the steam boiler. Those are just some wires that go to the pump. Okay, maybe not that much fun, but it's kind of nice to know what's in there. Okay, so now, since these wires have been removed, it'll come out pretty easy. Just pull up like that, and you just kind of lay that down in there. Okay, now, pull these wires out of the way, and you can see all your gauge in here. You got a bracket here that holds it in place. There's your gauge, and there's a lock nut there. First thing we want to do is loosen this lock nut. There's a 14 millimeter wrench on this. Get out of the way. So be careful you don't get the wrench on that nut too there. Should loosen pretty easy. Okay, once you have that, you put your 14 millimeter wrench on the back of the gauge. Then we're using a 13 millimeter on this nut here that comes from this capillary tube. Hold against yourself and push down on it, and it loosens real easily. Loosen that nut, and you should be able to very easily then take off this 14 millimeter nut here. Kind of tricky to get in here when the camera's in the way, but when you do it, you'll find this a lot easier. Try not to drop it in the bottom, but if you do, you took that bottom plate off, so it'll be easy to get at. Okay, so there's your nut. And the gauge will pull out. On the gauge, you have a screw there and a screw there. I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but you can see a little indentation there. It's got to come out through that right there. So when you put it in, if you have a hard time getting it in and out, just make sure you line that screw up with the indentation. Okay, if your bracket's bent in, you can straighten it out a little bit there, because when you put it together, this will bend in. That's what tensions the gauge up against the unit. Then to reassemble, you put your new gauge in. You've got the gauge in place. Then we will put on the lock nut. spin it on as far as you can with your fingers. That way you don't have to tighten so much with the wrench. Make sure your gauge is level, and make sure these wires are all underneath your capillary tube. If you pulled them up to get them out of the way, put them back down. And now we will have to tighten down on the lock nut here. Use your 14mm wrench. When you're tightening it, you have to make sure you don't tighten it so far that you can't fit your wrench into here. It's important later that we're able to fit it in there. Also, you want to make sure this bracket is angled in such a way where you will be able to get your wrench in. If this was turned up like that, you wouldn't be able to get your wrench on later when you need it. And you don't want to reef on this. Just want to make sure that it's snug, so that's a pretty good bend there. And then we put our capillary tube back on. A little tight in here, but we'll get her. I never have been too graceful. And hand tighten that. Again, this one's a 13mm. So just wrench on there. Get your 14 back on your gauge. Hold against yourself and tighten up to make it snug. Not real tight, you don't have to, but make it nice and snug. Okay, the gauge is in. It's looking level. And now we can put the controls back in. This is a little trickier. You have to be careful of a couple things when you're doing this. These wires here, you want to make sure these don't get underneath the bottom of your plate there. And this plate here is going to slide underneath. I don't know if you can see them there. There's a couple wires down in here. See the white connectors? This plate's going to slide underneath those. So we have to, well, when you get to it, I'll show you. Okay, so right now, get those wires out of the way. We'll stand this up. Then we'll put the machine back on its side so we can get at it. Okay, we'll do the wires later. We'll just get this put together now. And let's see. Okay. Okay, got the screws lined up. And we'll make these snug, but they don't have to be super tight. I'm missing the washer on this one, so do a better job than me and don't lose the washer. And our bottom plate. Okay, that part's done. We'll tip it back up. We'll hook up the wires. Okay. We'll get this red and black one last. So we'll get 1 and 2. We'll get 2, get the back one first. One. And we'll get 3 and 4. 4 will be in the back. 2's up front here. Okay, and when you put this on, you'll notice that there's those two little wire connectors there. They face back. It clicks in place. You kind of tuck your wires in there, and you're good to go. That's all there is to it.
The #1 source for everything coffee? WholeLatteLove.com.